Right now on Movie Review Talk, we go fishing for Aquaman. Clint Eastwood mounts the mule. More talk about Spider-Man. More talk about Mary Poppins. Hey there, movie fans. It's Movie Review Talk only on Collider. I'm your host, Scott Movie Mantz. Every week we talk about the new movies. We pick a Blu-ray for something you might have missed, and this week is a biggie. Joining me is a really awesome film panel today. And by the way, when we talk about these movies, just so you know, spoiler-free zone. So don't worry, you're not going to hear any spoilers. I mean, you might hear like maybe a little something, but nothing that's really going to ruin the movie. And every week I'm joined by two guest critics. Joining me this week, he is back. The legend is gracing the Collider Studios, Leonard Maltin. I am so happy to have you back on the show. Thank you so much.
Fun to be back with you, Scott.
It is so great. We have a lot of great movies to talk about today.
Yes, we do.
That are current, but also tap into the past in very interesting ways. And who better to talk about film history than Leonard Maltin? This is going to be awesome. Also joining us is, well, I mean, you already know her. She is our paranormal activity, the amazing, the spectacular, the sensational. You just call Collider Perri Vision at this point.
You can't say that when I'm sitting next to this guy, right? Seriously, sitting between the two of you right now, two people that I've admired doing this for so many years, is such a treat. So I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
Yay, Perri! Well, this is going to be a great panel. Lots of great movies to talk about. And let's get right to it with The Mule, directed by Clint Eastwood, starring Clint Eastwood, Bradley Cooper, Andy Garcia, and Eastwood plays Earl Stone, a 90-year-old horticulturist who becomes a drug courier for a Mexican cartel. Perri, I know you didn't have a chance to see this one yet.
Sadly, I wanted to.
Sadly, but Leonard, I know you did because you sat right next to me.
That's true. Excuse me. I'm all choked up talking about this.
Yeah.
Who would have thought Clint Eastwood would choose a role where he plays older than himself?
True. Older than himself.
He's 88 and the character's 90.
That's for starters. But what is it about this film that you feel like just makes it a quintessential Clint Eastwood directed movie?
Well, it's a Clint Eastwood movie through and through. It's written by the same guy who wrote Gran Torino, and it's kind of it have superficial similarities. He plays a guy who has hit hard times and who he's like Archie Bunker.
Yeah, there you go. Yes,
he spews these epithets at various ethnic people that he encounters over the story. And they seem to understand somehow that he means no malice.
Right. It's
just the way he talks.
Right. He's not being like going after them with a racial remark.
No.
He's just ignorant. Really.
Yeah, exactly. He's living in the past.
Yeah.
And this is who he is.
Right.
And as I say, they kind of get it. It's
Did you
based
like the
on
movie?
Very much.
Okay, good.
It's based on a true story. Now, again, how true, how much they embellished,
sure,
we'll never really know. I mean, you could do some research. It's based on specifically on a New York Times article about this 90-year-old white guy who drove or ferried or delivered drugs
for a Mexican
on the back of his truck for a Mexican cartel. And the reason that they recruit him, this one Mexican fellow recruits him at a party, because he is white, unassuming looking, and he brags that he's never had a speeding ticket. So he's just what they want, a careful driver who will be unobtrusive.
No record,
no profiling problems. And of course, he makes good. Where he hasn't made good is with his family.
Oh, yeah.
This is where he's let a lot of people down. He's a glad-hander in his community. He's a charmer. Everyone loves him. And the only people who don't love him are his closest family.
Yeah.
And who he has neglected.
His flowers love him.
Yeah, that's right.
But the thing about the Mule is you brought up that it's written by the same person who did Gran Torino, and like that film, Eastwood's character is very flawed, not as deliberately flawed as he was in Gran Torino. There's a sweetness to him that makes I don't want to say his ignorance unforgivable, but passable, given with reservations to it.
You take him as he is. You take him as he is. As he essentially takes people that he meets on their own terms.
Well, what I liked about the film was and this is what I like about Clint Eastwood's movies in general, it's just they're very straightforward. There's no bells and whistles. He just tells the story.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any flashy things. I mean, it's straightforward in a way that for the same reason, I mean, it's a completely different kind of film, but that I felt like Green Book was very straightforward. Just tells the story, no bells and whistles. And it's not a perfect movie, but it is an entertaining one.
It's definitely entertaining.
And it does get increasingly suspenseful. The only problem I really had with the movie was when he does his first drive as a mule, as a courier, and he takes to it very, very easily, very quickly. I don't really see. There's no moral dilemma.
There's no moral dilemma ever even hinted at in this film. No discussion, no repercussions, but no conversation about it.
Right, exactly.
If that's a spoiler, I'm sorry.
No.
But they just don't. He refuses to deal with it, and this is where there are a couple of places where you have to put logic aside in order to enjoy the movie.
Right.
And of course the cast is a sterling cast.
Yeah, it's a great cast.
It's got Bradley Cooper, the great Michael Pena, Lawrence Fishburne, Andy Garcia.
Yeah.
In a role he must have had fun with, and so many other good people. His own daughter Allison plays his daughter. Diane Wiest plays his ex-wife. No second-raters here. And I wondered, this is a little inside perhaps for the audience, or maybe your audience won't consider it too inside. They kept this movie in hiding until just this past week. Warner Brothers, which has released most of his movies for years, didn't let it out, didn't have a single screening of it until after the critics voted.
Why?
I can't figure it out. Either they had no faith in the film, or they felt, well, it's not awards fodder anyway. And they may be right about that.
Right, yeah, it's not.
But still, you'd think, because he has more than once snuck in under the wire.
Oh, he did big time back in 2004 with $1 Million Baby.
$1 Million Baby was a great surprise at the very, very end of the year.
Yep.
And the end of the voting season. And of course, it turned everybody on their heads.
This movie's not on the caliber of like $1 Million Baby, Mystic River, Flags of Our Fathers.
But if you like Clint Eastwood,
yes,
you got to see this movie.
And what would your letter grade be?
I give it a B+.
Yep, me too.
And it's just startling and wonderful to know that in an ever-changing world, you can still count on Clint Eastwood. He holds the screen.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
He commands the screen. And that's reassuring.
I mean, he's 88. Wow. I mean, this is like he's directed more than 30 movies.
Yeah.
And I would say this is like an above average, not a stellar. It's no Unforgiven. It's no $1 Million Baby. I mean, I loved Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima. It's not on that caliber, but it's very conventional Eastwood, which is a very good thing. And I'm with you on the letter grade too. I liked it very much. Perri, see the Mule.
See it. And I'm not the only one in that boat, because I think even though they did hold back with the screenings for critics, I don't think that's going to affect its box office chances, because just watch this one this weekend. Clint Eastwood can draw a crowd, and I have a very good feeling this is going to make a lot more money than many expected.
Oh, well, looking forward to it. It sounds to me like you just talked about the box office somewhere.
Yeah, I guess kind of.
Yeah, you kind of did. All right, well, let's move on to, I know we already talked about this, but I want to talk about it again because there's a lot of history with the original film here, Mary Poppins Returns, directed by Rob Marshall, starring Emily Blunt, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Ben Whishaw, and it has been decades like 54 years exactly since we last saw Mary Poppins. She hasn't aged a day, although she does look very different. Now she's back to help the Banks siblings and Michael's children get through a very difficult time. Perri, we sat next to each other.
We did.
At the world premiere at the Dolby Theater where they hold the Oscars. What did you think of Mary Poppins Returns?
I was pretty happy during the entire movie. It was one of those movies where its heart is so firmly in the right place and it's trying to convey such heartwarming, kind messages that, I mean, what better way to end the year than with a movie like that? I will say, though, the major problem I had with it is it felt more like musical set piece, musical set piece, musical set piece. There is a through line that connects to everything, but I don't know if it was as strong as it needed to be to have me really invested and also kind of to believe the story. But to me, this movie is about watching Mary Poppins, hearing all the songs, watching Lin-Manuel Miranda sing and dance, because he's got one of the best scenes in the entire movie for me. So
he sure does.
It made me happy.
And it's his film debut.
Yeah.
It's his film debut. It is. Okay, well...
Am I wrong? I think it's his first movie.
I think it might be. I mean, the only reason I paused before saying that, because it feels like we've been covering so many upcoming projects he has now, too.
Well, what did you think, Leonard Maltin? Especially because the 1964 original won Julie Andrews her first Academy Award.
That's right.
And I felt like... Emily Blunt was just so wonderful in this movie that she made it her own. But take it away, mister.
Well, okay. I hate the idea of Disney repeatedly going back and remaking or rehashing or sequelizing their big hit movies. I'm not looking forward to another iteration of The Lion King. We don't need another version of The Lion King. We've got The Lion King.
Yeah, I agree.
Same with Jungle Book. And Jungle Book's not a bad movie.
Yeah.
But the new one that Jon Favreau made, but we didn't need it.
Right. I agree completely.
Dumbo, I get a migraine thinking about a live-action Dumbo, though, of course, Tim Burton is not to be dismissed so easily, and he's making it. But given all that, I walked away pretty happy, too.
Good.
I think if they were going to do this, I wish they hadn't, but if they're going to tamper with the practically perfect Mary Poppins from 1964, at least they put it in the hands of people who really cared, who so clearly had the best intentions and wanted to make it as good as they could. And that includes Rob Marshall and the songwriters.
Sure. Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman.
Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman. And I mean, everybody involved knew they were, they were on thin ice, and they'd better be good. Now, the flip side of that coin is that maybe they were too locked into copying the original.
How so? Because I understand where you're going.
There's an equivalent. There's a paraphrase of every song. Everything is reminiscent of something in the original.
Okay.
And no big. I don't think it's a spoiler to say there's a great finale. The best thing in the movie is the finale. Really does leave you with a broad. It got to me, and I'd been kind of judgmental through the movie, though I enjoyed a lot of it. But instead of let's go fly a kite, let's go fly some balloons.
Right. Yeah. Nowhere to go but up.
Right, exactly. Everything is sort of, the character Lin-Manuel Miranda plays is not a chimney sweep, he's a lamplighter. And that's a great opening song, too, Under the Lovely Lights of London, something like that. So there's quality and there's heart, and there's some nice surprises, which we won't spoil.
Do not spoil. Yes.
Several nice surprises. And so I think it's pretty good.
Here's the thing.
It's pretty good.
I agree with both of you. And Perri, the sort of story that sort of like happens in between the musical numbers, believe it or not, I felt like there was more of a story not that much more, but a little bit more of a story in between the musical numbers than the original had. I mean, the original is a perfect movie.
The original is a series of vignettes.
Right, and so is this in a way, but there is a bit of a story that sort of interweaves this. And the songwriters of Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman, they definitely tip their hat. It's a love letter to the Sherman Brothers. I mean, there's no supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but there's something that's close to it, and I felt like, I've seen the movie 3 times now, and it does get better. The music sort of catches on. The first time you see it, it doesn't stay with you, but when you see it over and over, it does.
I've only seen it once.
Okay.
And the songs, though I thought they all worked in the context of the movie, I can't hum a single phrase for you.
I can't either. I also had a very difficult time remembering any of the titles. I mean, you even just brought it up with the opening number, and with covering the globes and everything, I was trying to remember all the songs I loved so much, and I couldn't. One of the bigger issues I have with the fact that it still feels like vignettes is that certain vignettes feel like they could come out of the movie. And it pains me to say this, but if I had to take one out of the movie, that would be a very easy choice to me, and it would be the musical number with Meryl Streep. As much as I adore her, and I understand why she's in this movie, as far as, one, that musical number goes in comparing it to all of the other ones, and 2, what it means for the story, it almost feels more like, let's take a diversion so we could put her in the movie, and that's it.
Well, the thing is, I agree with you, and I agree with you. And I do feel like if they were going to go there, they went there, and it was entertaining. It was a feel-good crowd pleaser. It had the magic. It felt like a throwback of sorts to the classic Disney musicals, which is obviously what Rob Marshall, who directed the Oscar-winning Best Picture Chicago, was going for. But the real thing for me with this movie, I have to say, Emily Blunt, who started the year sort of back in the beginning of April with A Quiet Place, and she ends the year with a phenomenally different role, even though she shot Mary Poppins first and then did A Quiet Place. But, talk about just an iconic role that you identify with for
Would you want to step into Julie Andrews' shoes?
I wouldn't, but she did, and she owned it. I felt like she made it her own.
Yeah, she did.
And I didn't watch Emily Blunt thinking of Julie Andrews. I watched Emily Blunt and watching Emily Blunt, I thought that she was lovely and enchanting and delightful. It reminded me in some ways of Amy Adams' performance in Enchanted, where she just embodied the role. I thought she was wonderful. And not perfect, but if you're going to make a sequel to an all-time classic like Mary Poppins, this is as good as you could probably get. What is your letter grade on this one?
So my letter grade, I've been teetering between a B and a B+, but really I think the emotional value of it is what trumps all. So I have to go with the B+, because really I like movies that make me happy. I like movies that make me think if I share this with another person, it'll make them happy. So it's getting a B+ for me.
There you go. How about you, Leonard?
Well, I'm ditto. B+, somewhere in there.
Okay, I'm going with an A-. I just and that letter grade kind of jumped up for me a bit after I saw it a second and a third time. And by the way, I saw it 3 times in 2 weeks, which the fact that I did that speaks volumes, because I definitely had a lot of things I needed to see.
There wasn't enough going on in the world.
I know, right? Yeah.
That you had time to see it 2 more times.
I had to go. I had to, and I had to sit next to Perri for the premiere. So there you go. That was the incentive, honestly.
I enjoyed the
next
company.
to Perri. I'm like, yes, I get to sit next to Perri. Okay, let's move on to another movie we touched on before, but it's in theaters right now, so we're going to bring it up again. And because there is a whole lot to talk about with this movie, it is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, directed by Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, Rodney Rothman, produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. The cast, voiceover cast, Shamik Moore, Jake Johnson, Haley Steinfeld, Mahershala Ali, Nicolas Cage, Katherine Hahn, Lily Tomlin. What a cast! I mean, geez. So move over, Peter Parker. There's a new Spider-Man in town. Miles Morales. Actually, hang on a second. There's a whole bunch of spider people, and there's even a Spider-Ham. And they're all coming together across dimensions to stop a sinister threat from destroying them all. Leonard Maltin, what did you think of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
I just saw it last night at an actual movie theater with real people.
Not critics.
Yes. And I was a little worried because I'd been so hyped over the past week by friends whose opinions I trust, including you.
Thank you.
And I said, can it be that good? Yes, it's that good. And in terms of innovative qualities, it is truly mind-blowing. I don't use hype words like that very much. This film earns those hype words. It is trying to be a living comic book. And that's not only the mindset, but the look. And apparently achieving that visual style was very difficult, very tough to do. Computers can do a lot, but they can't do everything. And I'm told what they actually resorted to, if that's quite the term, was hand-drawn animation. That's how how do you draw comic books? Computers don't draw comic books. It's an artist with a pencil or an ink nib, doing it. And that's what they did here.
Yep.
And the look is just phenomenal.
It really is.
But it's organic to the film. I mean, you can't separate one aspect from another. I think they really, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are the Lego, they're the Lego movie guys.
Yeah.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
21 and 22 Jump Street.
Exactly.
So they've done live action, they've done animation.
Yep. They started in sitcoms on TV.
Yeah.
They have an interesting background, both of them. But wow.
That says
wow.
That is really the word that describes, one single word that describes Spider-Verse alone is wow.
Yep.
Perri.
I can't stop talking about this movie, and everyone out there knows because we've talked about it quite a bit on this channel. And really, every single time I talk about it, I think I fall more and more in love with it. There are just so many things about this movie that I think just take storytelling, superhero storytelling on the big screen at least, and animation such a major step forward. Because when you think about it, if on paper you read something and said to yourself, oh, Miles Morales, he's going to meet another Peter Parker, he's going to meet Spider-Gwen, Spider-Ham, Spider-Man Noir, and and Penny Parker.
Penny Parker.
Is that going to work? And also, we're going to make all of that feel like you're reading a comic book. That shouldn't work at all. And then on top of that, not only does all the Spider People stuff work with his Spider People family, then he's also got a real family that anybody out there can connect to and relate with. When you see the influence that his father and his mother have on him in his daily life, and then you see the influence Peter B. Parker, voiced by Jake Johnson, has on him and all of them, it makes for such a rich character that I really will never forget.
We're talking about the technical wonders of this movie. At least I was. I was harping on that. But you've hit the nail on the head, because they could have all of that, and it wouldn't matter if you didn't care about the characters, and if there wasn't an underpinning, a solid underpinning of emotion, where you are involved, you are engaged. It does matter to you what happens to these characters.
There is so much going on in this movie, Perri and Leonard. Much.
Maybe a little too much.
Okay, but you know what? In spite of itself, it all does work. And first of all, like you both pointed out, a mixture of action. Of course, it has to have the action, but the heart and the humor and the drama. It is a perfect balance. And after decades of Peter Parker being the only Spider-Man in town, so to bring all these different incarnations together in a way that really is smart and it works, and they all help each other and elevate each other. But Peter B. Parker, it's Peter Parker. We've seen Peter Parker in high school. We've seen him in college. We've seen him in the comics. We've seen him married to Mary Jane and divorced. But really, what we see in this movie, as voiced by Jake Johnson, is a Peter Parker going through a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And okay, so here's why I couldn't wait to talk to you about this movie, because when I saw it for the second time, it occurred to me, it hit me really strong, that Spider-Verse. Are you ready? It is the It's a Wonderful Life of Spider-Man movies. Here's why. So Peter B. Parker, is George Bailey. He's having a crisis. And Miles Morales is Clarence. And Clarence helps George Bailey Miles helps Peter Parker like revitalize his life. I know it's a stretch, and honestly, when I said that to Phil Lord and Chris Miller, it was actually Chris Miller. I said, "It's a Wonderful Life." He goes, "How do you mean?" I said, "Well, Peter Parker is George Bailey." He goes, "Oh, and Miles Morales is Clarence?" I said, "Yes, exactly." He goes, "Wow, that's a really good take." I mean, purely coincidental. But the other thing is, like you pointed out, the animation, the mix of CGI and, of course, the hand-drawn animation. It is a comic book come to life. It is the best animated movie of the year. And because you have all these Spider people, all the different tones of Spider-Man Noir, the anime with Penny Parker, the Looney Tunes aspect of it with Spider-Ham, and it all works. They all work together, and it deserves its title as the best animated movie of the year. There is everyone watching this film will see a version of themselves on the screen. The gender balance, the diversity. This movie is a big fat grand slam home run.
My wife, who has no interest in or patience for superhero movies, really liked this one.
See? Well, there you go. I mean, that speaks volumes. Alice, give Alice our best. She's the best. So, letter grade, Perri.
I'm sticking with an A- right now, but in coming together to formulate my top 10 of the year, this movie might be very close to cracking the list right now.
How about you, Leonard?
A.
I'm giving it an A too. Yes. All right. So moving on from one comic book movie.
By the way,
yes,
you had time to see this a second time.
Oh, come on! Spider-Man runs very deep with me. I've been
No. I'm not questioning your wanting to see it again. I'm questioning you're managing to see it again over these cluttered few weeks.
Yes, well, the last month of the year is certainly a doozy, but you know what? You make time, you prioritize, and Spider-Man was definitely worth the priority. And boy, I cannot wait to get this Blu-ray and sleep with it under my pillow. Man, whoa. Moving on to another comic book movie. This one actually opens next Friday, the 21st, but since the embargo was lifted, we're going to dive deep with Aquaman, directed by James Wan, starring Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Willem Dafoe, Nicole Kidman? Whoa. Arthur Curry learns that his true identity, his true destiny, is to be a true hero and the heir to the underground kingdom of Atlantis. Leonard, I know you didn't have a chance to see it, bullet dodged. Perri, what did you think of Aquaman?
Apologies to everybody who's already heard my opinion on this, but I was very eager to talk about it with you, Scott. I am a very big fan of James Wan in particular. I will always root for James Wan, and even though I didn't like Aquaman, I will continue to root for James Wan, and believe it or not, I will also continue to root for the DC film franchise, because this is a movie that didn't come together for me, not much at all. I mean, we were just talking in the SpiderVerse conversation about you could do anything you want on the big screen in terms of action, crazy visual effects. If you don't have that emotional connection to the characters, something isn't going to click. And I think that's where I kind of missed out on all the fun everybody else seems to be having. But I do greatly admire WBDC and James Wan for at least taking such a big swing and trying and having such a diverse cast with so many crazy, colorful characters running around and going so big and taking that risk of doing what they did with the underwater stuff. But as much as I could say, that's cool, that's a cool idea, I like how that looks, it just didn't come together for me.
Okay, Perri, you're saying the same thing that I feel, but you're being very nice about it. Now, coming off of a movie like Spider-Man, which 20 years, for the last 20 years, starting with Blade and definitely with the first X-Men in 2000, the superhero genre has grown, it has evolved, it has sustained itself now, unlike with the Superman and Batman films, which kind of came and went, and that was it. And Spider-Verse is a bold, ambitious film that took a lot of chances, and the result of it was something vibrant that we'd never seen before. Aquaman, you said, it took a big swing. You ever hear of the mighty Casey? That's what this movie is. It took a big swing and it struck out.
There is no joy in Mudville then.
No. But the problem is that, like you said, there's a lot, it has its merits, but they don't come together. The movie is all over the place. It's not coherent. It doesn't flow forward. No pun intended with the flowing reference there. But first of all, it was convoluted. It's overlong. It's 2.5 hours, and it tries to do too much. The CGI was overload. It was CGI overload. And the action scenes, the battle scenes, if you want to call them battle scenes, after a while, and I always felt this way about action movies, after a while, if you don't take a breather, it has a numbing effect and you get battle fatigue. Battle fatigue is definitely what set in for me with this movie. Jason Momoa, great in the role. He crushes it. He's having fun with it. This is the kind of Aquaman that the big screen needed after Aquaman had been a punchline in the DC comic universe for many, many, many years. I mean, they made fun of it in Entourage. I would like to have seen Aquaman directed by James Cameron at this point. But I also feel like in some ways, this movie tried too hard to replicate the Marvel formula. They're chasing Marvel still. I still feel like Wonder Woman is still the best DC movie. And James Wan, look, Insidious, Saw, Conjuring, I think he's a great filmmaker, but I feel like he had a little too much on his plate with this movie.
See, this is why I feel the need to be nice about it, though, because I feel like if they don't kind of find their footing right now and try new things, we're never going to get there. And I see good intentions all over the place in this movie. Yeah. It's just the fact that the package overall never really works. But there's certain little bits in it that I really took to, namely Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
The opening sequence with Nicole Kidman, if the entire movie were like that, I would be so on board. I think that is so successful. And really, across the board, the performances are great too. It's almost like the entire time the pacing feels a little off to me, where even though I think everybody's individual delivery is on point, it's almost like there's like a half a frame too much in between each line of dialogue, and it makes the whole thing have this stilted, unnatural feeling, and that kind of plagued it. And just like you had battle fatigue, I think you called it. Mm-hmm. I had, ooh, look at this new scene fatigue, where I'm sure if I used like freeze framing and wound up looking at every single different location, there's a whole lot of detail and it looks wonderful, but I think the style of visual and how he shows that to you each time over, it was like, all right, that's cool, but I feel like I've seen it before.
Also, I mean, I gotta say too, the acting was over the top and cheesy. Patrick Wilson, who was in another DC movie, he was in Watchmen. I thought he displayed it on a little too thick, and it was like kind of laughable.
Well, that's a tonal issue too, because the movie is all over the place in that respect. There's so many moments that are played for jokes, and I think a lot of them don't land. There's so many moments where you're supposed to really, feel for Arthur with everything he's been through in terms of his parents and everything, and I got the feeling like a lot of the cast members here didn't quite know what the tone was for whatever specific scene they were in, but Patrick Wilson, I think, was pretty much the only one who was 100% committed to like cheesy villainy, and in his particular scenes, he was so over the top and crazy that he kept catching my eye, though.
You know what? This was a movie of diminishing returns. I started off wanting to like it, and for a little bit I did, but then it lost me.
Nicole Kidman seems to be making movies almost as fast as you're watching them.
That's right.
This past year. She's in, 400 movies?
Yeah, and they're all completely different.
Yeah.
And I think, like a week after Aquaman opens, I think Destroyer finally hits theaters. But talk about like a completely different role. But you know what? Nicole Kidman has never been as prolific as she has been in the last few years. So more power to her. I think Nicole Kidman is awesome. Letter grade, Perri?
Letter grade for Aquaman is definitely a C. Yeah, again, I can see the things that I like, the things that had potential to me, but when they don't come together, it kind of just is what it is. If you like it, good for you. It didn't really work for me. I didn't have fun.
Okay. All right, I kind of agree. Definitely very curious to know what you all think of Aquaman. When you see it on the 21st, make sure you comment below, hit us up on Twitter, be nice. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, and that's what this is all about. Moving on to a movie that finally is opening in theaters. Very excited to talk about this one, If Beale Street Could Talk. Adapted screenplay by Barry Jenkins, directed by Barry Jenkins, based on the book by James Baldwin. Cast as Kiki Layne, Stephan James, Regina King, and a whole lot of others. A woman in Harlem in the early 70s tries to prove her fiance's innocence while caring for their unborn child, Leonard.
First off, you just mentioned the cast, and several of those names will be unfamiliar to people. And there's a reason. Kiki Layne is making her debut in this movie, and I think you're watching a star being born as you watch this film. she's a star in the making.
Yep.
And running a close second is Stephan James, who has little experience.
Yeah.
But they are just a heartbreakingly beautiful couple, soulmates. They've heard of themselves as soulmates, and who fate has not been kind to these young people who look forward to spending their lives together and raising a family together. And it's not going to happen.
Right.
And this is not a spoiler. This is set up right at the beginning of the film.
Yes.
And James Baldwin, of course, was a man with a lot of anger and a lot of provocative thoughts that he expressed in his fiction and in his nonfiction writing. And if you didn't see the documentary "I'm Not Your Negro" a couple of years ago, you should. It's really good. It gives you an idea of who this man was, in many ways ahead of his time as a thinker and as a writer, philosopher. But the film just hit me like a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
It's powerful, it's tough, but it's rewarding.
Very much.
And Barry Jenkins just hits it out of the park.
Absolutely, he does. Perry?
So I saw this movie for the first time at TIFF, and I saw it on a day where I had seen, I think, something like 3 other movies right before it. I walked out of my first screening feeling almost a little disconnected. I could recognize that the performances were fantastic, the score in particular. This is Nicholas Britell, right?
Right.
This is phenomenal, and actually, speaking of the Golden Globes, the fact that that did not get a nomination is criminal.
Yeah.
But just recently, I rewatched it, and being able to sit with my energy at max level and really kind of appreciate all the nuance in the performances. This is also a shame that it didn't get nominated for a SAG ensemble, because there are so many beyond. I mean, you bring up the fact that they're soulmates, the fact that that love and that passion for each other radiates through the screen, and you could feel it. Not for a second in this movie do you not believe that these two people truly, deep down to their core, love each other. And the great thing about it is they establish that so early on in the movie that every single thing that happens along the way, it breaks your heart even more, because you know that this is never going to work, and everything in the world around them is fighting against them. But going back to the ensemble briefly, Brian Tyree Henry scene. I feel like the first time it didn't quite hit me, and the second time I was thinking, well, what movie was I watching? That scene, it's almost like it comes out of nowhere, and he only has one big sequence in the film, and he is so unforgettable there. But really, I could do a whole roll call. I mean, the first act fight scene also, that was one of the things that played best for me the first time around, and the second time around, just watching everybody's faces, not even if they're talking. If you look around the room and watch everyone's reaction shot, it is so powerful.
And Regina King.
She's fantastic. Yes, I feel like she's sort of the one to beat for supporting actress. And Kiki Lane.
Talk about another criminal snub.
Yeah, it's interesting how this movie has been faced with a lot of snubs at the Globes and at the SAG Awards. But I'm totally with you on Kiki Lane. After I saw the movie for the first time, because I was with you at that screening, I was like going on IMDb, like, where do I know her from? And I'm like, oh, this is it. So, but yeah, absolutely. She's phenomenal. She's terrific. She absolutely stands out among this incredibly talented and amazing ensemble cast. Stephan James, he did a movie a couple years ago called Race, about the Berlin Games, the Olympic Games, and he's on Homecoming with Julia Roberts. So he's on a roll right now. And this film, I too liked it more the second time I saw it. Not because I was tired, although I was at TIFF Toronto, but I just sometimes you're able to just sort of like when you sort of know what to expect, you're able to dive in deeper. You're able to embrace it more. You're able to commit yourself more to this. And this movie, I was able to do that. It's a lush, poetic, beautiful. It casts a spell. It is engrossing. It casts a spell that is unique, that is absolutely Barry Jenkins. I did love this movie as much as Moonlight, but for different reasons. Moonlight won Best Picture 2006, beating La La Land. I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I'm all right. But I did like this. I think that Beale Street is one of the year's best movies.
Yeah, no discussion there.
What's your letter grade?
A.
Yeah, me too.
I'm coming in just a little under A minus. Some pacing issues. That's
Okay,
it.
no, I get that. I understand the pacing issues, but yes, if Beale Street could talk, this is the kind of movie. So it's finally in theaters. This is the kind of movie that, yes, you do have to look for it and check it out and see it, because this is a movie that will stand the test of time. Let us know what you think of this film. Now, new on Blu-ray is a film that is one of the year's very, 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 very best movies. And if you can get this baby in 4K, please, by all means, do so. It is Mission Impossible Fallout. Damn, I love the hell out of this movie. Written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who directed its predecessor, Rogue Nation, the only time a director was brought back for another Mission Impossible movie. Amazing cast: Tom Cruise, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, Henry Cavill, Ving Rhames. Ethan Hunt and his IMF team take on the most dangerous mission yet as Ethan's past, I should say, catches up with him with dangerous results. This movie made $565 million worldwide, the third highest grossing Mission Impossible. The first one is Rogue Nation, which made a little over $700 million, and then Ghost Protocol made, I think, like $696. I love this movie. I think this is what the 4K. He's actually, look at this guy, friggin' Tom Cruise. Watching him do his stunts, it's just amazing. I mean, it's the best action movie of the year and the best action movie in years. Did you love Mission Impossible Fallout?
No.
What?
Oh,
What?
wow.
What? Wait. Okay. Oh my God. What? What? Leonard, what? Tell
He's
me.
still reacting. I want to make sure you're
used to
done before I go.
Yeah.
No, I didn't dislike it. I didn't dislike it because I think it's coasting on the goodwill that the series has built up, especially in recent years.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We now expect Tom Cruise to do ridiculous stunts. And we know that at least some of them he really does himself.
Yeah.
and we enjoy seeing, his crew, Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg, and even Rebecca Ferguson now coming back. So I think, as I say, there's a lot of goodwill going in, and so I think this movie kind of coasts on that to some degree.
Okay.
And it didn't wow me. It just didn't wow me.
Okay, I respect that. Of course, I respect
It's
Leonard
like
Maltin.
no, but it's like a comfort food movie. I think that's why it was so successful, is that people knew what they wanted to see, and got it.
Okay. You know what? I honestly understand that point of view completely. You're right. In recent years, the Mission films did hit their stride. Rogue Nation was, or I should say, Ghost Protocol in 2011, directed by Brad Bird. At that point, that was the best. And then in 2015, you had Rogue Nation, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, which then that became the best. And to me, of the 6 Mission films, Rogue Nation actually is my favorite of them all, because I felt like it had the smartest story. It also wasn't too convoluted, but I just felt like it just was everything. It was a gritty Mission film, not as polished as Ghost Protocol, but it was absolutely perfect. Okay, Perri, help me out here with Fallout. What do you think?
Well, I do think that this franchise is one that does coast on goodwill a little bit, but I also think, especially ever since McQuarrie signed on, whether it's in a writing capacity or a directing one, he keeps adding to that.
Yeah.
I was reading the THR roundtable for animators, and Brad Bird was on that panel, and he had referenced Ghost Protocol and how important it was to him to be able to have a real stunt be done, and just to, remove digitally the wires. And you could feel it. You could feel it in every single stunt scene in this film. I mean, not that he directed this one, McQuarrie did, but I think that it's not just about, what's like the next crazy stunt Tom Cruise is going to do next. It's the real impact that you feel when you watch it. You could feel the difference. I mean, I actually really like the movie Skyscraper this year, but when you compare a skyscraper stunt sequence to what you see in this movie, it's night and day.
Oh, I completely agree. And the other thing about Mission Impossible Fallout is, you've now had 6 movies in 22 years. and to be this deep, especially as the years go by, into a franchise, into a film series, and for it to still be this strong. I mean, I actually do completely understand your point, and I do think that you're right, and there is a certain amount of goodwill that goes along with this, but there is also something about this movie, because it brings back elements of Ethan Hunt's past, that makes it the Skyfall, which is the James Bond film. It makes it the Skyfall of the Mission series. My second favorite after Rogue Nation. Very, very strong film. Check it out on Blu-ray. Check it out in 4K if you have one of those awesome TVs and players, because this is what this, that's what this...
It's all about the K's now.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It totally is.
That's what they're telling me anyway.
Well, Perri, Perri Vision here on Collider.
Perri
Always
Vision.
great talking movies with you. Leonard, thank you so much for coming back here.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so what's going on in the world of Leonard Maltin?
Oh, we don't have time. But I'm filing my reviews one by one at leonardmaltin.com. And my daughter Jessie and I are still hosting our weekly podcast, Maltin on Movies. Get it wherever better books are sold. Oh yeah, book. I also have a book that came out this year called Hooked on Hollywood. It's a collection of interviews and articles and essays that I've written over many, many years' time.
What does it say at the bottom? Discoveries?
Discoveries from a lifetime of film fandom.
Well, when it comes to film fandom, Leonard Maltin, you are the face of film fandom and have been for so many years. I have to say, I just watched this movie about Disney on Netflix, and there you are. And it was so great. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Leonard Maltin. I mean, and I'm like, oh, he was on my show. That's so cool. But definitely, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you share. Please share Movie Review Talk with everyone. Share the YouTube version. Share the podcast version on Podcast One. Make sure you comment. Make sure you review. Hit me up on Twitter at MovieMance. Hit us up on Twitter at Collider Video. # Movie Review Talk. Definitely want to know what you think. Comment down below. Please be nice, respectful, and pleasant. Always goes a long way. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week on Collider Movie Review Talk, Christian Bale is VP Dick Cheney, and Bumblebee, a Transformers movie that is really, 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 really good. How good is it? Find out next time, and until then, here's looking at you, kid.
Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode. You want to watch more? Then click up here. Or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. If you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.